Hello everyone and welcome to my Soap Twist 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The scene took place in the sunlit grandeur of Los Angeles' Forrester Mansion, where the air was always tinged with expensive perfume and echoes of dramatic revelations. Brooke Logan stood by the large windows overlooking the pool, her signature blonde waves catching the light as she sipped coffee, her thoughts drifting between the latest fashion line tensions at Forrester Creations and the quiet hope that her life with Ridge was finally becoming stable. Ridge was nearby, sketching idly on a pad, his attention divided between the designs and the woman he had loved, lost, and reclaimed more times than anyone could count. Their reunion felt fragile but genuine, a delicate balance after so many storms. Then came the sound of the front door opening, followed by footsteps that were both familiar and distinct, quicker and more purposeful than Brooke's teenage stride. She turned, her cup almost slipping out of her grasp as her son appeared in the doorway. R.J. Forrester, now recast as a young man exuding confidence, stepped inside, clutching a small child carefully in his arms. The boy, only 3 or 4 years old, had dark curls and wide, curious eyes that darted around the opulent room. He clung to RJ's neck, a tiny backpack slung over one shoulder, looking both excited and slightly overwhelmed by the vastness of the space. Brooke's breath caught. RJ. Her voice was soft at first, then grew louder with surprise and delight. She quickly set the cup down and crossed the room, her arms opening instinctively. Ridge looked up from a sketch, his pencil freezing in mid-stroke as he processed the scene. The child in RJ's arms returned their gaze, a miniature version of innocence amidst the chaos that seemed to surround this family at all times. RJ smiled nervously, revealing a vulnerability he hadn't shown since he was much younger. He lifted the boy slightly, as if drawing strength from the small weight. "Mom," he said, his voice steady yet full of emotion. He looked directly at Brooke, then at Ridge, who had slowly gotten to his feet. "Dad." He paused for a moment before proceeding. This is my son." The statement landed like a stone dropped into still water, sending ripples outward in silent shock. Brooke froze, her hands halfway extended, her eyes wide as she studied the child's face, the shape of the nose, the curve of the mouth, which echoed RJ's own features from when he was younger. Ridge's expression changed from surprise to something more profound, a combination of protectiveness and questions forming behind his dark eyes. Brooke finally moved, her maternal instincts taking precedence over all other considerations. She reached out gently, trembling fingers against the boy's cheek. "Your son?" she asked quietly, as if saying it aloud would make it more real. The little boy blinked at her before offering a shy smile and reaching for Brooke's shiny necklace. RJ nodded and swallowed hard. "Yeah. His name is Luca. He's 3. I brought him here because he needs a family. We need a family." He looked down at the child, brushing a curl from his brow with endless tenderness. "I didn't know how to tell you over the phone. I didn't even know how to process it myself at first." Ridge took a step closer, his voice low but firm. "RJ, what happened? Where has he been? Who?" He trailed off, not wanting to press too hard, but the questions remained, unavoidable in a family where secrets had always been currency. RJ took a deep breath and sat Luca on his hip as the boy began to fidget and look around at the unfamiliar faces. "It's a long story," he acknowledged. "I left LA after everything with Luna, after all that mess. I needed space, needed to figure out who I was without the drama, without the family name pulling at me every second. I traveled, Europe mostly, some time in Brazil to connect with roots I never really explored. I was working freelance, designing on my own, posting online like before. That's where I met her. Elena." Brooke's eyes softened as she understood, and worry lines formed across her cheeks. She motioned toward the couch. "Come sit. Both of you. Let me get Luca something, juice? Toys? We have so many from when Hope's kids were little." She was already moving toward the kitchen, her nurturing side taking over as it always did when children were involved. RJ followed, settling Luca on the plush cushions with a stuffed animal that Brooke quickly produced from a nearby basket. The boy grabbed it immediately, his shyness easing slightly. RJ sat beside him, one arm protectively wrapped around his small shoulders. Elena was everything I thought I needed at the time. Independent, artistic, no ties to the fashion world or the family feuds. We were together for a while, and then she got pregnant. It wasn't planned, but when Luca came, everything changed. Ridge sat across from them, leaning forward, elbows on his knees. She didn't want him? The question was direct but not harsh. Ridge had experienced pain, abandonment, and the struggle to protect a child. RJ shakes his head. She tried. For a while. But she was young, dealing with her own things, family pressure back home, career dreams that didn't include diapers and sleepless nights. She loved him, I know she did, but she couldn't handle it. She left when he was about 18 months old. Said she needed to find herself again. I haven't heard from her since. I thought about tracking her down, but Luca needed stability more than he needed a chase. Brooke came back with an applause cup.
Hi, sweetheart.
I'm your grandma, Brooke. The word grandma felt strange on her tongue. She had been a mother many times before, but this was new territory, with a generation shifting right in front of her. Luca studied her for a moment before accepting the cup and taking a tentative sip. RJ observed the interaction, a small smile tugging on his lips. He's shy at first, but once he warms up, he's a chatterbox. He likes cars and drawing, takes after his grandfather, I believe. He nodded to Ridge, who managed a faint chuckle despite the whirlwind of emotions. So you decided to bring him here, Ridge explained, piecing it together. To LA.
To us.
RJ met his father's gaze steadily. I couldn't keep running. Not with him. He deserves roots, family, people who will fight for him no matter what. And honestly, I missed you guys. Missed this crazy, messed up, beautiful life we have. I want him to know his grandparents, his aunts and uncles, the whole insane Forrester Logan clan. Even if it means diving back into the drama. Brooke was sitting on the other side of Luca, her hand lightly contacting RJ's arm. Tears sparkled in her eyes, but they were happy tears mixed with concern. Why didn't you tell us sooner? We would have helped. We would have flown out, anything. I know, RJ said with a smile. But I needed to do this on my own first. Prove that I could be a father without relying on the family name, money, or connections. I wanted Luca to have a father who earned it, not one who just inherited it.
But now,
I'm here. We're here. And I need you. Both of you. The room fell into a gentle silence, broken only by Luca's soft humming as he played with the stuffed animal. Ridge reached out, tentatively touching RJ's shoulder, and then Luca's head. The boy looked up, unafraid, and gave Ridge a toothy grin. Hi, he said simply. Ridge's tough exterior cracked just slightly. Hi, kiddo. He looked at Brooke, who was already beaming through her tears. Over the next few hours, the conversation flowed in waves. RJ explaining the logistics of the sudden move, the pediatrician visits in Europe, and the way Luca said his first full sentence on a train in Italy. Brooke peppered him with questions about Elena, whether there was a possibility of custody issues, and how RJ had managed alone. Ridge mostly listened, interjecting with practical concerns about RJ's school in LA, a room in the mansion, and how this would affect his job at Forrester Creations if he wanted to return. Luca became more confident as he noticed the adult's attention shift. He toddled over to Ridge and tugged on his pant leg. Draw? He asked, pointing to the sketch pad that remained on the coffee table. Ridge paused only briefly before scooping the boy onto his lap.
Sure. What do you want?
A car? A house? Plane, Luca said, and Ridge started drawing a simple jet, explaining each line as he went. Brooke watched, her heart swelling at the sight of Ridge, the man who had once been so distant with small children, now patiently guiding tiny fingers across the paper. RJ leaned back, exhaustion and relief etched on his face. I know this is a lot, he told Brooke. Dropping this on you. A grandson you didn't know existed. Brooke shook her head, reaching out to squeeze his hand. It's a gift, RJ. A surprise, yes, but a gift. We've lost so much time already, with you gone, with everything that's happened, but now we get to make up for it. Luca gets to grow up surrounded by love, even if it's loud and complicated love. As the afternoon progressed, the family began to adjust to their new reality. Brooke asked the kitchen staff to prepare a simple dinner, something kid-friendly like pasta and vegetables, nothing too fancy. Rich showed Luca the pool from the terrace and pointed out the lights that would turn on at dusk. RJ followed, answering questions Luca posed about the big water and whether fish lived there. In quieter moments, RJ became more open. He mentioned the nights when Luca couldn't sleep, crying for a mother who wouldn't come back. He felt guilty about not giving his son a traditional family sooner, of the fear that bringing him to LA would subject him to the same chaos that had driven RJ away in the first place. But he also spoke of hope, of seeing Luca play in the mansion gardens, of family dinners filled with stories, and perhaps one day designing clothes under his grandfather's supervision. Brooke listened, her own memories surfacing, of raising her children amid scandals, betrayals, and never-ending reconciliations. She told RJ about Hope's early years, Bridget's difficulties, and how each child in this family faced adversity but came out stronger. "We don't do normal," she admitted with a soft laugh. "But we love fiercely," Ridge said, holding Luca against his shoulder as the boy fell asleep. "I wasn't always the best father. You know that. I made mistakes, big ones. But I learned. And I'll be damned if I let another generation miss out because of old patterns. This little guy, he's a Forrester. And Logan's too. That means he's got fight in him, and heart." Luca sighed and rubbed his eyes. RJ attempted to take him upstairs, but Brooke intervened. "Let me. Just for a minute. I want to rock him, tell him a story about when his daddy was little." RJ handed him over, watching Brooke carry Luca to the nursery that had once belonged to Hope's children. She sat in the rocking chair, humming softly as Luca's eyelids drooped. RJ and Ridge sat in companionable silence downstairs for quite some time. "You did good, son," Ridge finally said. "Bringing him here. It took guts." RJ nodded. "I was scared. I still am. But seeing Mom with him, seeing you, it feels right." Ridge patted him on the back. "Welcome home. Both of you." Brooke whispered to the sleeping child upstairs about beaches and fashion shows, about a family that argued, but always came back together. She reflected on all the surprises life had thrown at her, pregnancy, divorce, reunions, and realized this was perhaps the sweetest one yet. When she returned downstairs, RJ was waiting. "Thank you," he replied simply. Brooke hugged him tight. "No, thank you. For trusting us. For bringing my grandson home." And in that embrace, with the city lights twinkling outside and a new chapter beginning, the Forrester Logan saga added another layer. One of unexpected joy, a child who would grow up to know he was loved beyond measure, and a son who had finally found his way back home. The days that followed blurred into a pattern of adjustment. Luca explored every corner of the mansion, his laughter reverberating through halls that had witnessed so much grief. RJ reconnected with old friends at Forrester Creations, tentatively returning to design work while prioritizing fatherhood. Brooke and Ridge marveled at their grandson's milestones, first words in English mixed with Italian phrases taught by RJ, first unafraid steps in the garden. There were challenges, of course. The family's questions included Hope's surprise, Steffi's cautious welcome, and Eric's delight at another creative spark in the bloodline. There have been whispers in the press about the mysterious child, as well as speculation about Elena's location. Throughout it all, the core remained, a family united by a little boy who called Brooke Nana within a week, tugged Ridge's beard and demanded more plain drawings, and looked at RJ with complete trust. In the quiet evenings, when Luca slept and the house settled, RJ would sit with his parents and tell them about his travels and the man he had become since leaving LA. Brooke would listen, proud and a little wistful, as Ridge gave gruff advice laced with affection. And so the story progressed, not with grand declarations or explosive drama, but with the gradual, steady growth of love across generations. A child is brought home, A son returns, and a family grows in the most unexpected way. In the glittering, turbulent world of the bold and the beautiful, sometimes the boldest move was simply returning with a small hand in yours, ready to say, "Mom, this is my son." RJ stood in the doorway of the Forrester living room for longer than he intended. Los Angeles sunlight spilled across the polished floor, catching the edges of framed photographs and fashion sketches that told a generational story. This house had always seemed larger than life to him, filled with expectations and history. Today, however, it felt heavy in a way he had not expected. His hand rested gently on the small shoulder beside him, a silent reassurance aimed more at himself than the child. Brooke's voice drifted in from the adjacent room as she spoke on the phone, light and familiar, the sound of someone completely at ease in her world. RJ swallowed. There were 1,000 possible outcomes to this moment, none of which could be planned. He had imagined it on the plane, in the car, and even while walking up the stairs to the house, but imagination was not a good substitute for reality. The boy looked up at him with wide eyes, taking in everything. The high ceilings, the artwork, and the feeling that this place belonged to a life he didn't fully comprehend. RJ smiled down at him, hoping his own nerves would not show. "It's okay," RJ said softly. "We're just going to talk." RJ's chest tightened as the boy nodded, trustingly. Trust was fragile. He understood that better than most. Brooke ended her call and turned, a smile forming as she noticed her son standing there. That smile faltered slightly when she realized he wasn't alone. "RJ," she inquired, curiosity overtaking warmth.
Who is this?
RJ took a step forward, despite his instincts telling him to back away. He took a deep breath and steadied himself. "Mom," he said, his voice soft but firm. "This is my son." The words hung in the air, reshaping the room around them. Brooke did not reply right away. She looked from RJ to the child and back again, looking for confirmation or context to make the sentence make sense. "My grandson?" she asked quietly. RJ nodded. Brooke stared for quite some time. Shock washed over her face, followed by confusion, and then a series of emotions too complex to name. She reached for the back of a chair, as if to steady herself, her gaze never leaving the boy.
How?
She finally asked. "When?" RJ looked down at the child. "Why don't you sit down on the couch for a minute?" He made a gentle suggestion. "There are snacks in the kitchen if you want." The boy paused, looking between them, then nodded and moved toward the couch, climbing up and swinging his legs as if it were any other living room. RJ watched him until he relaxed, then returned to his mother. "I didn't know," RJ said. "Not until recently." Brooke's hand moved to her mouth. "RJ, you're very young. How could this happen without your knowledge?" RJ exhaled slowly. "It happened a long time ago. I was barely out of high school. I met someone while traveling. We were young, stupid, and assumed we had more time than we did. When it was over, I had no idea she was pregnant." Brooke listened, her expression softening as the weight of the revelation settled in. "And she didn't tell you," RJ responded. "She tried to handle it on her own. I found out years later. She reached out because she didn't think she could do it alone any longer." Brooke looked over at the boy again. He was examining a decorative pillow with intense concentration, completely unaware of the seismic shift occurring around him. "What is his name?" she asked. "Evan," RJ answered. "He's 6. Brooke completed the math automatically, her mind racing back through the years, memories rearranging themselves. RJ had been distant at times, insisting on being alone, and his trips had taken on new meaning. "So, he's been living with you?" she asked. "For the past few months," RJ replied. "I wanted to tell you sooner." Brooke nodded slowly. "I just didn't know how." She crossed the room and knelt in front of Evan, giving him a warm smile that flowed naturally despite the shock that still filled her eyes. "Hi, Evan," she said. "My name is Brooke." Evan smiled back, small and polite. "Hi. I like your house," he added. Brooke laughed softly, emotion catching in her throat.
Thank you.
"I'm glad you're here." She stood and returned her gaze to RJ's face. Why now? She asked. Why did you bring him here today? RJ hesitated. Because this is our home, he explained finally. And I don't want to continue pretending he does not exist. He deserves better than that. So do you. Brooke felt tears well up at the corners of her eyes. You're right, she replied. I wish I had known sooner. I wish you hadn't had to go through this alone. I thought I could handle it, RJ admitted. I thought that protecting everyone entailed keeping quiet. But the truth has a way of demanding to be seen. Brooke reached out and grabbed his hand. You're not alone anymore. As the afternoon progressed, the conversation came in fits and starts. Brooke asked questions about Evan's favorite foods, school, and interests, and RJ responded as best he could, filling in the gaps where he was still learning for himself. Evan quickly warmed to Brooke, drawn in by her kindness and the way she listened as if every word was important. Later, as Evan quietly played with a stack of magazines, Brooke and RJ sat together, the enormity of the situation becoming more manageable.